So again, let me restart then. Welcome everyone. My name is Leonardo. I'm here as a chairperson for this session on using environmental modeling and adjusting it to, or trying to connect it more to digital twin cities concept. We'll have four speakers today that will roughly talk for 10 minutes, hopefully. Please keep the time to allow for questions from the audience. We have Lydia Vitanova from Gate Institute in online in Zoom. So she will present her work remotely, but she will answer as well some questions that you might have here. She will talk about the urban heat island effect in cities and how can this be connected again to digital twins, and she will present you a case study on that. Good. So I will invite Lydia to come in. If you want to share your screen with your presentation, please go ahead. Welcome, Lydia, again.
Yes, thank you very much.
Let me see.
I will share now my screen.
Okay, I haven't started sharing. Should be.
Is it all right?
Either you want. Yes.
Okay, thank you very much for the invitation. I'm Lydia Vitanova from Gate Institute, and today I would like to talk about urban heat island and more specifically for the use case of Sofia city. So today I will briefly introduce what is the urban heat island and what is the issue related to the urban heat island, some recent trends in Europe. I will talk about the recent about the purpose of the research concept, and the model that we are using in our research. Then I will briefly introduce our result and application of the research outcomes and future steps. So maybe all of you know about this phenomenon or problem related to the urban heat island. Actually, urban heat island, this is a phenomenon that we can consider that this is the difference in surface air temperature between a city and surrounding rural area. So what are the main factors that influence urban heat island? There is a lot of factors that we can consider. One of them, this is the heat generated by human activity, rise of the energy consumption, traffic increase, reduction of the green space and parks. Also, when we have increasing of the urban development or lack of water body, some poor urban planning, we have also increasing the local temperature. Another problem, this is the overpopulation, poor use of the common and unused area, use of the inappropriate building materials, and last but not least, this is influence of the local climate and topography. Actually, this is key point because when we try to investigate some problem in the city area, we have to start from the basic or unique point in the city. That's why this last part, influence of local climate and topography, is very important when we try to investigate the temperature or some problem in the urban area. So issue related to urban heat island, unfortunately, we have climate change and seasonality changing due to the increasing of the temperature and global warming, increase the energy consumption, discomfort and danger in the human health, not only in the summer, but also in another season. We have more and more cases regarding to the heat stroke, increased greenhouse gas emission, air pollution. We have more natural disaster. Already in many research was investigated that because of the urban heat island and because of the increasing of the temperature, we have increasing of the precipitation and natural disaster, and also we have biodiversity in danger. So according to the recent trend in Europe, you can see here, this is the data from the European Environmental Agency. This is trends regarding to the urban heat island in 100 European cities. You can see the difference between North and Europe and South Europe. regarding the heat island summer intensity. So already we have the problem regarding to the increasing of the temperature, especially in the Central and South Europe. That's why important thing is that we understand first what is the basic, the basic temperature, what is the already the problem that exists. And based on this existing problem, we try to investigate more deeply and in detail regarding to the study case in our city. So this research that we focus on the capital of Bulgaria, Sofia city. We try to numerically estimate the urban heat island, not only in Sofia, in all city, but also in each neighborhood. So another unique point in our city is that we don't consider temperature as low temperature. We think the temperature consists by, for example, impact of the energy consumption by building, impact of energy consumption by traffic, impact of the land use, of the population. So we try to consider all of these impacts separately in order to understand what happened in our city. So that means that our research is human building mobility oriented research, that we focus on the people or land use, building, transport, and then we try to figure out all these problems in one, act together, and understand what is the impact of the urban heat island in all these aspects. So we use for our research to simulate with a weather research and forecasting model. This is a regional climate model with resolution 250 meters. And our research period that we're trying to investigate, this is in the August. So in the right part, you can see the red color here. This is our study domain research. So first about result, if I have to talk about, this is for the people, or this is, we try to, before we try to make some simulation, before we try to get some result, it's important we investigate the current situation in our city. That's why we try to create the land use map. This land use map we get from the Copernicus Surface Project. This is data used for the land use map gathered from two sources. And in this land use map that is 250 meter resolution, we already categorize our urban area in high, medium, and low density area. Then another output data we're using, this is the building data. Actually, this is the first atlas in Sofia that we have created, 2D distribution high energy scenario. We already created a low, high, and medium scenario. And the idea of this atlas is first to see what is the energy consumption of the whole city, depending on the different type of the building. And then we focus on some specific area. For example, in the central area, we try to see where is the hotspot in the building energy consumption, depending on the type of the building. For example, we try to analyze what kind of building there is in the area, what is the age of the building, what is the material they made, what is the cause, the main cause for the energy increasing. Because this is very important when we try to simulate the model in order to investigate urban heat island. And because there is already a known connection between energy consumption and the temperature distribution in the city area. So as I already mentioned, this is part of our input file in the model. This is the preparation when we try to make this simulation. So this is our energy atlas of Sofia, that 250 meter. And as you can see here, we have already calculated. This is the medium energy scenario with our maximum energy consumption of the medium energy scenario is more than 200 watt per meter squared that we have estimated in our city. Another important parameter, this is the building height atlas of Sofia, or building height. Here in this map, we try to investigate what is the building height and what is actually in our model, we try to see the canopy parameter. And in this result, we can see that minimum height is 1 floor, or this is 5 meters for Sofia. Medium height, this is 4 or 5 floor. This is in the central area. Maybe many of the European cities, in the central area, it's not so high-rise building. for example, compared to some Asian city. And in the surrounding area, when we have new development area, we have around 20 floors around, this is around 50 meters. And about transportation, we try, this is an ongoing result, we try to make traffic map atlas in order to understand what is the energy consumption by traffic in Sofia. So here you can see classification of the road class that are ranging from the motorway to destination road. And then the next step is we try to calculate the number of the vehicle based on their location. And another important thing here we have to mention with the application of the research outcomes. So our research as the multidisciplinary have a lot of outcome. For example, one of them is we try to investigate and understand the impact of urban heat islands. Based on this, we can understand the heat risks, thermal comfort, what is the energy efficiency in our city, what is the solar potential, try to enrich to the 2D, 3D data, also focus on the urban health and lifestyle. Then we can create some risk map in order to see what relates to the problem regarding to disaster and mortality, heat index, of course, air quality, transit-oriented development, this is related to the mobility, and of course, all seen this is the local climate. And important part here is that our application, our data could apply for data enrichment of 3D city model. Here just one example for the high energy scenario and low energy scenario. You can see here based on our energy data, we could enrich 3D city model. You can see the different color of the buildings in Sofia and Lozanets district. Red color means that high increasing the energy consumption depending on the type of the building, and with yellow is more low energy consumption of the building. And what we'll do as future step, we try to create energy consumption map from the vehicle. We try to estimate, as I already say, urban heat island in all city and partly for each neighborhood. Create a risk map. Consider a future projection of Sofia together with the University of Tsukuba in Japan. We try to make some future scenario, and of course, enrich of the 3D city model together with in supporting the research of the urban heat island. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Lydia.
Yes, anyone have any questions to Lydia? We can take one or two questions. Yes, please.
What qualities are you looking at for heat risk? What with data?
Did you hear it?
Leonardo, could you please repeat, because I couldn't hear. Could you please repeat more near to the microphone, the question?
If you can come up, I think the microphone is probably there. That's it. I think you can, if you talk over there, it will be, she will listen.
I'm sorry, I cannot hear.
Is this microphone?
No, the microphone should be close to the camera. Yeah.
Okay. So what different data are you looking at to understand heat risk at the moment? What do you?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear again the question. Could you please, or maybe I try to increase my sound also. Okay, I'm sorry. Yes, could you please repeat again about? I care just about European city. Yes.
Oh yeah, the microphone.
Yes, sorry.
Yeah, can you say it again? Sorry. Now
Yes, better. Better, yes.
Hear me now. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. So when it comes to heat risk in cities, what different data are you collecting to create a balanced image? One thing that I've seen in Swedish projects is talking about greenery and what kind of how the city is built and how its population have different heat risks depending on if they can find shadow or not. And there's been one thing that's been pointed out here is for playgrounds that have been built without trees in Sweden. Another thing is that it turns out that areas with low socioeconomic factors also have fewer trees and a higher heat risk.
Thank you very much for the great question. So I think that I already a little bit explained in the presentation that first, when we try to investigate the city area, no matter its temperature or building energy of the building or transport. So first we try to understand what is the local point or uniqueness of the city, because each city, even in Europe, North Europe, Central Europe, South Europe, this is no matter, but I think that city have some unique point, not only culture, but this is depending on the lifestyle of the people and urban planning. So when we talk about Sofia, we first try to consider because each city have a lot of consist of some puzzle. I don't want to say problems, but let's say that when we talk about increasing of the temperature, or we try to see some energy consumption, we have a lot of problem regarding to the lifestyle, regarding to the, for example, with the traffic, regarding to the, for example, energy consumption, regarding of the, why not some policy regarding to all these problems. So we try to find out each one separately. Of course, greening is very important. When we try to calculate the urban heat island, of course, we try to understand land use proper, for example, what kind in the land use, how many we have green area, how many is the urban area, what kind of urban area there is. This urban area, what is the structure of the building, what is the material of the building, for example, also regarding to the population density. This is also related to the traffic, all this related to the lifestyle. So this means I cannot say only one thing is important. We try to figure out everything as important. And if we have much more puzzle in our image, we can make more real image for the as result of the urban heat island. And then such a result could be very good for the enrichment to the 2D and 3D data. I hope I could answer your question.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lydia.
Thank you very much.
We need to move on, otherwise the other speakers will not have so much time. So I would invite Dag Westerberg now from Chalmers Industrietechniek to join us and talk about his work. Let me just put the presentation. Screen, nice, hopefully power.
So you have to wait for changing.
Yeah, you have to change it there because the pointer is not there.
Okay, no problem. Right, so my name is Dag Westerberg. I'm a data scientist and geodetic specialist working at the Chalmers Industrietechniek as a researcher at the Department of Applied AI. And I'll just be giving some quick overviews of the ways that my colleagues and project partners have been using machine learning in different aspects of looking at energy modeling and renovation, energy renovation. So we use machine learning has like lots of uses in many different here. Like we use it for like looking at building geometries, windows to wall ratios, trying to guess, like looking at construction details and metadata from metadata, and also for like speeding up the actual final energy calculations and that we used. So most of my research and my interests is large scale urban data. So we're looking at large scale urban data. What we have is generally we have like aerial photograph, we have 2D building footprints, and we have point cloud data. So I like focusing on data that I can get for like large areas, like definitely cities, countries. I think that I like developing models and methods that can be applied to like a country, or at least any city in a country or Europe, or rather than focusing on like one building at a time, or like 10 buildings at a time, where you have ability to go in and collect more detailed data. So for like the aspect here is first aspect is like we do use for machine learning is building the roof models from combination of like aerial photography to get roof details, and also then to combine with the point cloud data, because at least in Sweden, for some cities that have high quality point cloud data, there are cities like 16 to 32 points per square meter. This is much easier because there you can like really go in and extract the planes very easily from the point cloud data, because it's very accuracy, very low noise. But like when we're looking at like the data that we have for all of Sweden, we are looking at like on the order of 2 to 4 points per square meter. And also it's quite noisy, and often never the vegetation and the buildings are not separately classified. So there we have to use various methods to assist, you can say. So it is to use this to like identify the buildings, and then we use the images to extract the segments, and then with the help of point clouds, we can then go in and do the fitting and because here, for example, here you can see an example. This is what happens if we try to go directly on point cloud data. It works in some cases. In some cases, it works. You get weird building shapes due to the noise in the building data. So that's why we use this hybrid approach, where we try to extract first the roof planes from the images and then try to fit those with the point cloud data. And we also do some work over some points, do small scale, where you can then get really accurate 3D models fairly quickly. This model here is made from a video phone. You take a phone, you go out, walk around the building, you film, and then you can and then if you have that, this here is like it's certainly a centimeter accurate 3D model, which you can then do like very detailed, and then you can enhance this by combine this with like image recognition. You can segment the doors and windows and balconies. We've done that, and extract that. So then you can get like a very good, in like say half an hour, 20 minutes, like filming, processing everything, which is like very good compared to like trying to do this by hand. On the other hand, if you want to do this for every building in Sweden or every building in Europe, you're going to be walking around for a while. So you need both approaches. Another important part when talking about energy modeling is window to wall ratio. So what we do here is we use Google Street View, GIS. We have the GIS layers, and then we take the Google Street Views, apply. We actually use 2 different models for the windows. We use a YOLO and we use a heat diffusion model. The reason for this is that we can, if you see over here, for example, we have for example, here we've got a tree with a building behind it. But then we can use, but YOLO is pretty good at recognizing trees and houses. So then we can use this to say, okay, that is probably a house. And then we can use but And then we can use like a more like specific like window specific heat diffusion model to actually try to extract the window corners. But this is not really enough because trying to get from here, because we don't just need to know where the windows are, we need to know how big they are. So that's why, but we have like going back from the GIS data, we can like say, okay, we know the size of this building because from the vector data. So we have to try to like find, okay, that building, its vector data is this building. So then we count the number of pixels that like make up this facade, correlate that to there. That gives us, okay, this is 6 meters, it's 433 pixels, and we get how many pixels per meter, and then we can like, by going back and forth, we can then eventually find out exactly, okay, how many square meters is the whole facade, sum up the windows, and then we can get the window to wall ratio. Other important is that but like when you're doing the energy, what's actually like really important is like what's inside the walls, what's inside the roof, what are the windows like, the U value of the different material. And this you cannot get just by like from like image, by doing like image recognition. Sure, you can like recognize, okay, this wall is concrete, this wall is whatever, or this roof is, but that doesn't really tell you anything useful. So, and so it's actually the metadata about the building, which is actually more important really than than geometric data. So here we have been looking at like a clustering approach where we have various databases. We have like kind of like about energy uses, and we have like databases of what typical building looks like in Sweden or Europe, depending on when it was built and the material. And we also have like different ways. We have like some buildings that we actually do know a lot about. So the idea is to like cluster, use machine learning to like, so we have small collection of buildings that we know a lot about, and then we have like a lot of buildings that we don't know anything about, and then using like a clustering algorithm to try to map the buildings we don't know anything about to like its nearest neighbor, but like in an energy building material point of view, to try to like, to guess how the building is built and to get the U values. Because without that, you cannot really do a useful energy simulation. So we have the geometry, we know stuff about the windows to walls, we know a little bit about the building material, and then the final step then is to extend that to like trying to do an energy simulation, but fast. Where are we? And to do that, me and some colleagues at Chalmers have been looking at, instead of trying to feed a geometric model, a 3D mesh into a machine learning algorithm, we are taking more of a parameterized approach. So what that means is that instead of like describing a building as a geometry, we describe a building as a collection of like numeric parameters. So you can do that by like, first you take the building, your footprint, and then you try to like map it to what shape, what kind of classified shape is it? And then once you have that, then you can describe the shape and the dimensions as numbers. Then you can go in and like describe everything else about the building, like the dimensions, staircases, room lengths, like some internal dimensions, windows, U values, everything here. But the idea is that instead of like trying to work on like this, like a geometry, what you're training a machine learning model on is basically just a vector of numbers, and that's really easy. That's what machine learning algorithms love. They love taking a long vector of numbers and returning a short vector or different vector of numbers. So by doing like this, we can do a very quick and the actual learning becomes very easy. So this is what we're working on, or some colleagues are working on, focusing on like the importance, trying to, so there are two aspects here. One is like we have a little parameters, we're currently tweaking like which parameters we have to collect and which ones are important. And see, some are very important, some are completely irrelevant. So then trying to find that, and then we have some training results here. What we're doing here is like, this is our predicted, and the real here is from, we're using Energy Plus. So we can get from our parameterized model, we can get very accurate, close to what Energy Plus says the number should be. However, the step here is to like, is what Energy Plus says the number should be actually what like the number is in like the actual building. So there's work there, like, because when you parameterize a building, you simplify it a lot. So the risk is that we are oversimplifying the building to the point. We have to make sure we don't oversimplify the building to the point where it doesn't actually represent the original building. So we got three. So there's like three steps. There's the actual building. There's the simplified geometry of the building, and then there is our parameterized description of the building. So we can go from the parameter. So the connection between the parameterized description and the like simplified geometry, that works very well. So now we just have to make sure that the simplified geometry is actually a representation of the building we were trying to simulate from the beginning. And this is like our long-term vision of like collecting together all of these aspects, that all of these like disparate parts of this project, is to be able to go from, in a automated way, like we have this is like this, even when we have drawings of buildings, often 2D, they can draw, they can be like 100 years old. When we have that, but we also have like, we got good GIS data, we got image data, and is there a way to combine all of this and actually get out a complete BIM model? It's far from solved, but this is like kind of the holy grail, as it were, of this research that we are doing. So we have like, we got bits and pieces along the way. We got some work, we can like take drawings, like get extract lines, we can like take point clouds and get roof shapes, we can get windows. But the point is now is to then combine all of those parts into a single model. And then build a tool here that will, for like actually going in and exploring this data. The point is that you can, so we have, yeah, like you go in a map, you click a building, you get information about the roofs, you get all the images, and yeah, and then you can run and the simulations and the energy data, so that you can like then start. Because come back to the beginning, what we were looking at the beginning was also like, for example, was the energy, for the energy modeling is also like, was the energy renovation. So by doing all of this, we can then run a lot of like, if it's fast enough and easy enough, then we can like run lots of different simulations with lots of different combinations of materials to see which materials provide an optimal approach for like, yeah, for depending on what you want, like your LCA, your LCC. But by able to do this quickly, quickly in a large scale, you can then like take a look, instead of doing it building by building, you can do it city by city and like look, okay, what can we do on a city scale or even a country scale? Okay, I think I'll end there. Thank you.
Unfortunately, I think we need to continue, otherwise the other speakers will not have enough time. But if you have any questions, please, I guess Doug is welcome to answer you outside as well. So don't forget them and good. So now I would like to invite Maud to talk about a topic.
please go ahead. I think you can present yourself.
Yes. All right. Hello, everybody. I'm Mariam, I'm an assistant professor at Chalmers in the Sustainable Building Research Group with Leonardo and a few people in this room. So I'm going to talk to you today about modeling building stocks and the flows as well of resources. And this is all for circular economy. So some things are actually a bit similar to what's been said already. So I might try to speed up a bit. But what I focus on really is a problem we have so far in the construction industry. And I think you all know that we are mostly living in a linear economy. And for the construction industry globally, the fact that we use so much resources, virgin resources that we transport and that we transform and that we build buildings and build the whole built environment means that in total, globally, that's 11% of our greenhouse gas emission can be linked to that. That's called the embodied carbon. And meanwhile, we are also discarding a bunch of these materials and then taking from the earth. So the idea with the circular economy in this situation would be to take the outflows and to bring it back to the inflows. That way we have less resources at the beginning and thus less embodied carbon. So in terms of what we can do to really help the construction industry would be that we map out where all these resources are in the built environment, what type of resources, where, how much, in what shape, and when will it become available. So ideally, we would have a digital twin like this for the whole construction industry. And if you click on a building, let's say, you know exactly what's in there, when is it going to be available, and then you can plan your construction in your city accordingly. Obviously, a bit tricky to do. And there is a strand of research that is called material stock modeling, where we try to characterize this amount of construction material and also trying to see how detailed really can we get. And this is what I want to show you today. And we stole the concept of level of detail, LOD, that is very proper to digital twin. This is also for the sake of this presentation to run through it. So the LOD 0 would be having an idea for each building, what kind of material do we have there. And this is done through the bottom-up stock analysis. And what we do is we know what buildings are out there. That's a building inventory. And buildings are all different. So we cluster them in typical buildings. And then we need to check on average how much material is in there. That's called the material intensity. And to do this, we go to archives. So I've been to different archives with my students. We take pictures of very old building plans because these are the interesting ones that will be demolished soon. And we need to understand what's in there. And we take pictures and then we scale it and we calculate. And we look at old description and specs when we have them, or we make assumptions on what was used back then. And with this, what we get is what we call the material intensity coefficient. And this is for each type of building, let's say wood multifamily from the 80s, we have that much wood, that much ceramics and bricks, that much mineral, etc. And because we know which type of buildings we have in the city, we can scale up. And we get, when we apply it to Gothenburg, we get a map like this. And this is, on average, how much wood we have in Gothenburg buildings, residential buildings here. So that's great, and that's a first understanding, and that's been done for 10, 15 years in different cities, not so many, but a few. Issue that when we go to construction actors and give them that, it's nice, but there is little they can do with this kind of information. They need more details. So we are looking at going at a higher level of detail. And this all comes down to how do we collect our data for the material intensity. So for Gothenburg, we have already disaggregated this data. Instead of taking the average for the whole building, we try to map out, okay, in which element of the building is this? Because if we know where the timber is, and we disaggregate it, then we know how much is in the basement, how much is in the floors, how much is in the top floor, etc. We can again scale this up and know, okay, actually we have wood in floor and roof in these parts, in the old residential in Gothenburg. Again, that's good, but not enough. We are talking about circular economy, and we need to know when this will become available. And knowing that it's in the roof is not really helping. What we need to know is where is it in the building exactly, in terms of what we call, I'm going to skip a bit, sorry, what we call building layers. The building layers of the layers of the buildings are tied to how long the material stays in use. So if a material is in the structure of the building, it is likely that it will stay as long as the building. If a material is in the skin of the building, so the cladding, it will probably change quicker. If it's in the space, so let's say the partition wall, if you decide to change the inside of your building, you will have a quicker turnover. So knowing where the material is in terms of layers helps to model the future and understand better what will become available when. That means that when we go through these building plans, etc., we also need to tag in which layer material is. And we are doing this right now, so it's obviously rather data intensive. But I had a student do this for the residential buildings. So she rerun all the base data through which layer and element is it. So you can see here that we now know where all these elements are across this material, are across the elements of the building and across which layer. And that way, what we can do with this is apply scenarios of lifetime of these. So if we take the structure and the reinforced concrete, and we assume a lifetime for this, and we apply normal distribution with different parameters, we can have an idea of how much concrete and steel will become available from the current stock in the future. We have a bit of an issue here in research in that we have very bad lifetime data overall. Lifetime is not something that's been much recorded. So now we are looking at demolition, trying to get an understanding of demolition curves and survival ratio, etc. But the modeling concept is there. And again, if you go to actors, depending on which actors we're talking about, for municipality, this might be interesting for urban planning. If you talk to an architect who is already designing the building and needs to know exactly what will be available now, this is not enough detail. So you have another level of detail again, and that's to complement all of this with AI. And you've seen AI already, and Josie will talk to you more about AI, so I shall skip it. And the next, and the holy grail, as you said, would be to have a bill of material exactly for each building. This exists to some extent with new buildings that are modeled with Revit, and then you can quite quickly export the bill of material. For older buildings, that's more tricky. So we have some of those for Gothenburg, but not all. So material stock modeling, different levels of detail. Different details give you different information and can be or not be useful depending on the actor. So the idea, the workflow we have is to take this whole strand of bottom-up stock research up there, kind of averages, even if well disaggregated, still averages, to show this in the digital twin as a baseline, and then over time complement this. Because that way we are not waiting to have a perfect exact modeling of Gothenburg or the city, but rather build on it and become more and more accurate. And of course, then you would say, okay, that's level of detail 3. This is how we got data. You can assume this is quite reliable or so reliable. Now, a very last thing I want to talk to you about that we are working as well on the, quite actively, not really on the side, is when we have this, exactly what functionalities, what information would different actors want to have. And this is a European project we are working on with Leonardo and other colleagues. We have 3 case studies. One is Gothenburg, one is in the Netherlands, and one is in France. And we have the same kind of data, not exactly, but basically we have an understanding of the stocks. And we are collaborating with different stakeholders, trying to say, okay, if you had this, if we had this information, what exactly would you need to know? And this work here is really to try to understand through kind of mock-ups of tools, would that be useful for you in your decision making so that you can really support the circular economy? So this is a mock-up, for example, but if we imagine that we really have a good understanding of our buildings and the materials in there and when it will become available, how would you as an actor use this? What would you need? And yes, as a quick conclusion, I think the digital twins is really full of opportunity to support the circularity. We can diversify data sources and kind of integrate all of them together as well. But it's also big on visualization and communication and getting stakeholders to collaborate across the value chain. Yes, I think that's it.
Thank you, Laura.
So we have time for one question.
Yes.
Yeah, sorry, Mina.
I'm just asking as an engineer, what about the quality of materials? We are very poor at characterizing the state of structures and materials.
Yes, definitely. No, I think we can have some rough understanding depending on the age.
Yeah.
If you will have asbestos, for example. But then there are other techniques with machine learning, like the state of concrete, for example, and different methods. But at the end of the day, of course, you need most probably to go into a building and double check. So the point of this is more to kind of prepare for a wide scale, a circular economy. But yeah, at the end of the day, you do need to go and check the building and check the quality. But I agree, this is usually a question that pops up a lot in this research. Thank you.
Maybe you
Yeah,
can.
very fast. So you mentioned at the end about the stakeholders. How far do you think we can go into an idea of creating a marketplace of this material? Because at the end, this material can be recycled and reused, to your first slide. So do you have stakeholders that are thinking in that way, in the marketplace way?
Yes, there are, and they are always very keen to see this kind of work, of course, because I have a few years ago, I was working in Denmark, and we had the stakeholders trying to, well, they had made a new material, a mix of concrete and clay, and Denmark, a lot of clay, and they told us, yeah, please give us any kind of estimate, because right now we have no idea, actually. So for their business model, it's really complicated. Even if they know they can make that material, they don't know to what extent they can go with this. So my understanding is anything is better for them than the no information they have so far. Yeah.
Thank you again, Rod. I will now invite Josie to make a last presentation of the day. She will talk to you a bit about this tool application that you can use.
Yes.
Go ahead, Josie.
Hi, so my name's Josie. I recently started a PhD at Chalmers University, where I'm focused on using machine learning to extract characteristics of the built environment. And yeah, I think that what Maud mentioned was a good kind of lead up to what I'll be presenting. So I'm very interested in which one is it?
Maybe now it's working.
Yes. So I'm really interested in using computer vision and machine learning to add more detail to these urban digital twins that show the materials that are available in cities. And I won't go into too much detail about the use case, but yeah, construction and demolition waste is a growing concern for many countries, and there are many efforts being put into finding ways to make the available materials more visible and having that as a way to reuse materials. So one of the terms that is used for this is called the building material cadastre, where a cadastre is a term for a government record of ownership and property boundary lines. So building material cadastre goes beyond that basic definition to include a comprehensive inventory of building materials. So the development of a building material cadastre at a city scale could be used to identify opportunities for resource recovery. And many researchers are using computer vision to potentially create these building material cadastres using Google Street View. And computer vision is a type of machine learning method, which machine learning methods is basically a reversal of the traditional knowledge mining process. So in the traditional methods, a researcher would manually explore relationships between the variables that they are interested in. So if they were interested in the relationship between X and Y, then they would use their domain knowledge to first choose X and then identify additional variables that could influence the relationship. And this leads them to have very deep knowledge of the inherent logic of the model. But machine learning is data-driven, which means that the model is able to calculate the relationships itself with very little guidance from a human. So in this way, machine learning finds patterns in the data. It makes models from those patterns and then creates predictions from those models. And since we're now allowing these machine learning models to make the calculations itself, the evaluation of the model becomes more focused on the model's performance rather than understanding its inherent logic. So earlier this year, there was a very nice article. Oh, that's too far. There was a very nice article published by researchers from ETH-Zurich who asked the question, can we use computer vision methods to extract material information from Google Street View images at a city scale? This article was published with a labeled data set and code that can be used to recreate the experiment. So the data set was 985 manually annotated Google Street View images. The labels were brick, stucco, rustication, siding, wood, metal. And a null label was made for images without building material information. And another class was for materials that weren't definable by the other labels. And if anyone wants to try training this model themselves, I just wanted to mention the hardware that I used. So with these image models, the hardware can be quite a high. You need usually a lot of a good hardware to train it. So I used 8 GB GPU. I had no trouble with that. So as I mentioned earlier, because the focus of evaluating a machine learning model has shifted from understanding its inherent logic to evaluating performance in situations that mimic real life, I wanted to bring this research into an interactive tool so that we could really upload images and get a really deep intuition for how it's performing. And I was able to do this with a nice tool called Hugging Face, which is a company and an open source platform that provides a Python library and a repository for pre-trained models and free compute instances, which allow users to create spaces where they can host machine learning models and provide a simple user interface. So my process to develop this tool was to first format the data into the format that Hugging Face needs to have. I set up the pipeline, trained the model, saved the model, deployed it to Hugging Face, and then created a very simple user interface. So if you want to try using it, you can scan this QR code. You can also enter this bit.ly link in there. Give it a few seconds for everyone. I can also maybe come back to it later if someone missed it. So the blue sky vision of this model is to, oh, sorry, maybe I should give more explanation on how to use it first. So you can essentially upload any image of a building and it will try to make prediction of the label. I think the way to mimic the the situation that it's expecting most is to look up a address in Google Maps, switch to Street View, take a screenshot, and then upload it to the tool. So the blue sky vision for this model is to use it to create a city scale material resource cadastre that anyone could query, but of course there's still a lot of work that would be done to get to that vision. So there's a lot of known limitations and like work that needs to be done to get to the next level or the next step. So one limitation was the original problem that was framed by the ETH-ZIRC research was multi-label, which means if the image was of a building with both brick and stucco, then it would have both labels, brick and stucco. But the Hugging Face pipeline doesn't have support for multi-label by default. There's a way to customize it, but it would take some additional time to get that working. And some other problems that would need to be solved to build an actual city scale material cadastre would be identifying the GPS coordinates to get street view images. So if you just took every GPS coordinate from city, you would probably end up with a lot of highways and empty fields. So you need to first filter the GPS coordinates that you're interested in. And at some point, we would also want to create additional data sets to include more labels. So not every city is made with brick and stucco and those labels. So you might, to make more data sets, that would take more time to manually annotate all these other images. So that would be a significant hurdle. And also identifying when those materials might become available, like Maud mentioned. Yeah, this is known as a very important aspect of this problem, which would require a completely separate model. But nonetheless, there's still a lot of value in interactively testing the model to get an intuition for how these models work and how it would perform on images it hasn't seen before. So there might be, if you upload a lot of images to the model and kind of see how it's performing, you might notice some weird quirks that it has, like maybe there's some labels that it really struggles with, or maybe it sometimes doesn't work well when the photo is at a weird angle, or just like some weird things like that. But yeah, it's useful to find those weird quirks out so they can be avoided in the future. So thank you for listening.
Any questions for Josie? Good, so thank you so much for coming. Yes, I hope you enjoyed these examples and trying to move forward research and trying to bring in these ideas into the realm of digital twins. I guess the speakers will be available for you. Lydia, I don't know if you're still there. I think it's also for a presentation online. And yes, if there is nothing else, we can session now. Thank you so much for coming. Yeah, okay, yeah. Yeah.